The Aadhaar system is the database of Indian residents, and as such it will contain the information of Indian residents in terms of its demographic and biometric data. The natural question that arises in the mind of everybody is what are the measures which are taken for the protection of privacy and security of the data it holds? Security and privacy of personal data has been fundamental in design of Aadhaar system without sacrificing utility of the national identity system. When creating a national identity system of this scale, it is imperative that privacy and security of personal data are not afterthoughts but designed into the strategy of the system from day one. Aadhaar system addresses these issues at its core. Security and privacy of data within resident Aadhaar system has been foundational and is clearly reflected in UIDIA's strategy, design, and its processes throughout the system. The Aadhaar system's data collection and storage is strongly protected by sophisticated encryption processes to ensure biometric data does not leak either through private contractors running enrollment centers or at the central data servers that store the details. The architecture of Aadhaar system has been designed to ensure data security, privacy, non-duplication, data integrity, and other related aspects. Government is fully aware of the need to constantly upgrade the technology and infrastructure to maintain highest level of data security and integrity. For this purpose, a well-designed and robust data security system is in place. Security is an integral part of the system from the initial design to the final stage, and security audits are conducted on regular basis. A multi-layer approach is adopted in providing security measures with multiple formats being used at different steps from the point of collection of resident data to the ending stage. Security of data is monitored at all the times, that is at rest, in transit, and in storage. Security and privacy of personal data are fully ensured without sacrificing the utility of the project. Various policies and procedures have been defined, and these are reviewed and updated continually, thereby appropriately controlling and monitoring any movement of people, material, and data in and out of UIDIA premises, particularly the data center. Further strengthening of security and privacy of data is an ever evolving process, and all possible steps are taken to make the data safer and protected. The privacy is built into Aadhaar system by design. Aadhaar numbering scheme. Aadhaar number is a random number with no built-in intelligence or profiling information. A 12-digit number was chosen based on the identification need of the population in the next couple of centuries. It was also decided that to ensure privacy, the date of birth and other attributes information should not be embedded in the number. Similarly, place of birth or residence using administrative boundaries, state, district, and taluk should also not to be embedded within the number. When state or district IDs are embedded, the number faces the risk of becoming invalid and misleading the authenticator when people move from place to place. It can also lead to profiling or targeting based on the region, state, district that a person is from. This approach of storing intelligence in identification numbers was developed to make filing, manual search, and bookkeeping easier prior to the advent of computers. This is no longer necessary since centralized database management system can index the records for rapid search and access without having to section data by location or date of birth. Another important design feature of Aadhaar is minimal data with no linkage. Since Aadhaar system has data of all Aadhaar holders of the country in a central repository, it was essential that data be kept to a minimum so as to provide identity-related functions such as issuance and authentication and nothing else. This design philosophy is derived directly from the fact that UIDIA respects privacy of the residents, not hold non-essential data within its system. In addition to having minimal data, four attributes, name, address, gender, and date of birth, plus two optional data, mobile and email, this central database does not have any linkage to existing systems or applications that use Aadhaar. This essentially creates a set of data islands containing resident data across various applications and systems, a federated model for resident data, rather than a central model, eliminating the risk of single system having complete knowledge of a resident and his or her transaction history. Another design aspect of Aadhaar is no pooling of data. Aadhaar system is not designed to collect and pool various data and hence does not become a single central data repository having all knowledge about residents. It has no linkage information such as PAN number, driver's license number, PDS card, EPIC number, etc. to any other system. That this design allows transaction data to reside in specific systems in a federated model. This approach allows resident information to stay in distributed fashion across many systems owned by different agencies. Any transfer or collation of data across these distributed information silos should follow due course of law. Another design aspect of Aadhaar is yes or no answer for authentication. Aadhaar authentication responds only with yes or no answer. For example, authentication answers questions such as residents claims his her name, is this correct? Whereas it does not provide any scheme to ask questions such as what is the address of a resident whose Aadhaar number is this. Aadhaar authentication allows applications to verify the identity of claim by the resident while servicing them while still protecting their data privacy. Aadhaar supports explicit resident consented eKYC. A balance between privacy and purpose is critical to ensure convenience of online identity is balanced with requirement to protect resident identity data. External user agencies do not have access to the Aadhaar database. Aadhaar eKYC service allows resident to authorize UIDAI to share electronic version of their Aadhaar letter. For every Aadhaar eKYC request, only after successful resident authentication, demographic and photo data is shared in electronic format via biometric or OTP authentication. Resident explicitly authorizes UIDIA to share electronic version of Aadhaar letter instead of sharing physical photocopies. Resident authorization is not used for multiple eKYC transaction. Instead, every time agencies require electronic version of Aadhaar letter data for KYC purposes, resident must authorize the agency. Aadhaar system does not hold any transaction history. Aadhaar authentication does not have any knowledge of the transaction resident is performing. It only knows that resident is authenticated by this agency at this time. Aadhaar system has no knowledge and is not designed to keep track of specific transaction details such as depositing money or obtaining pension or anything else. This has been consciously designed to ensure resident transaction history is not part of the central system to ensure privacy of the resident. UIDAI has taken several measures to ensure security of resident data, spanning from strong end-to-end encryption of sensitive data, use of strong PKI 2048 encryption, use of HSM hardware security model appliances, physical security, access control, network security, stringent audit mechanism, 24 by 7 monitoring. Measures such as data partitioning and data encryption. It is very important that all personal data collected for the purpose of UIDIA is provided significant protection across UIDIA and its ecosystem. A national data privacy and data protection legislation will indeed help in this effort, and UIDI has been strongly in support of such a law. However, in the absence of such a legislation, the UIDIA has ensured that the resident data is handled with the utmost care within its own and partner domains and follows some of the major principles of data privacy and protection recognized by countries that have already enacted such laws. Online communication between enrollment client and CIDR take place over a HTTP and accesses remote services that expose a REST interface. SSL is used as the transport layer encryption mechanism. Client security. This module deals primarily with certificates and key management to encrypt the enrollment packets that are exported. Key management makes use of PKI technologies with two sets of public key being maintained for data exchange with CIDR and registers respectively. CIDR packets are secured by encrypting them using a 2048-bit UIDI public key. Each such public key is made available in the format of a valid X509 certificate. The validity of these certificates is separately checked on the client side prior to the extraction of the corresponding public key. During packet encryption, a single public key is randomly selected from a set of valid public keys. The corresponding key store is embedded into the enrollment client and forms a part of the application runtime binaries. Application security for the Aadhaar architecture cuts across all places where an untrusted source or destination is used. The encrypted enrollment data file is uploaded in the DMZ zone to ensure against Trojans or malwares. The enrollment or update data packets are encrypted by the client using public key cryptography, with each data record having an HMAC which can identify any integrity violation of the data. Master keys are stored and managed with HSM, Hardware Security Model Appliance. It must be noted that enrollment packet is constructed in memory and encrypted prior to the writing of the file. All the data, including biometrics and demographic data, is never stored in unencrypted form. The packet is encrypted with a randomly generated AES-256 symmetric session key, and the key itself is encrypted with a 2048-bit public key selected from a bank of UIDIA public keys. Following should be noted. Every enrollment station, registrar, enrollment agency, operator, and supervisors are registered and authenticated. Every packet is biometrically signed by the operator and the supervisor in various cases and contains complete process data including station ID, timestamp, location, PIN code, and GPS. This allows strong validations and traceability at packet level. Every enrollment data packet is always stored in a PKI encrypted, tamper evident file and are never decrypted or modified during the transit. Enrollment data is never decrypted until it is reached within the UIDS data center's secure production zone. Usage of strong 2048-bit PKI encryption technologies ensures that no agency or persons can access, modify, or misuse the resident data during field enrollment or in transit to the UIDIA data center. In addition to enrollment packet, resident data in Aadhaar master database and BI data store is protected through various security measures. These include encryption, used to ensure data is encrypted in database and not available to administrators and other users in plain text format. Anti-tampering, used to ensure data is only altered by authorized applications and not via command line SQL scripts. Data partitioning, data is partitioned vertically. Some attributes about resident is in one database while others in separate ones and across multiple databases within a random alias UVID based reference ID being the only link to ensure that there is no central data table where all resident data is available. Anonymization. Hashing techniques are used for anonymizing data in BI and reporting data store, still having the ability to match and do analytics. Other than applications techniques as described above to protect resident data, UIDIE has implemented data center best practices and technologies such as firewalls, IPS systems, zoning and access control, centralized security policy management, audits, 24/7 monitoring through Security Operation Center SOC, and strong security procedures used to ensure CIDR is protected. Securing the centralized UID database. Biometric encryption is a process that securely binds a cryptographic key to a biometric so that neither the key nor the biometric can be retrieved from the stored template. The key is recreated only if the correct live biometric sample is represented on verification. The digital key, password, and PIN, etc., is randomly generated on enrollment and the user is not aware of it. The key is completely independent of biometrics and is therefore can always be changed or updated. After a biometric sample is acquired, the biometric encrypted algorithm securely and consistently binds the key to the biometric to create a protected biometric encrypted template, also called private template. In essence, the key is encrypted with the biometric. The biometric encryption template provides an excellent privacy protection and can be stored either in a database or locally, such as smart card, token, laptop, cell phone, etc. At the end of the enrollment, both the key and the biometric are discarded. On verification, the user presents fresh biometric sample which, when applied to the legitimate biometric encrypted template, will let the encryption algorithm retrieve the same key or password. In other words, the biometric serves as a decryption key. At the end of the verification, the biometric sample is discarded once again. The biometric encryption system does not require actual biometric to be stored in the central database, and thus these encryption technologies have enormous potential to enhance privacy and security of the UIDAI data. Some of the key benefits and advantages of this biometric encryption technology include no retention of the biometric image or template, multiple cancelable, revocable identifiers, improved authentication, security, stronger binding of user biometric and identifier, improved security of personal data and communications, greater public confidence and acceptance and use, greater compliance with privacy laws, suitable for large-scale applications, has been adopted by Aadhaar authentication system. Other authentication, as envisaged, is expected to become a national online identity service which is used across various domains and applications on a day-to-day basis. Any online service will come under various attacks, including organized large-scale attacks. This means that the importance of this service being secured and available is at most critical. At high level, security objectives and key strategies can be summarized as below. Aadhaar authentication requires resident data such as demographics and biometric to be captured and packaged to be sent to CIDR for matching. It is very important that the data captured on the front end devices and applications be secured before transmitting over the network. End-to-end encryption of personal identity data (PID) block is necessary to ensure that data is not read, stored, or tampered with for malicious purposes. The following picture shows you the Aadhaar authentication value chain. It starts with UIDAI, which is responsible for enrolling Indian residents and creating a database called CIDR. So once this database is created, now it enables the UIDAI to offer services of authentication to the rest of the country. And this service is actually done in the following way. The Aadhaar appoints certain agencies called AUA or ASA, stands for Aadhaar User Agency, Aadhaar Service Agency, who in turn will appoint other agencies called sub AUA or ASA. And these Aadhaar agencies will actually have authenticated or authorized devices which can be used for the authentication process like biometric and iris. And now finally at the bottom you have Aadhaar holders who will be requiring these services. The exact role and their responsibilities will be shown in the following slides. Securing end-to-end network. Securing network at multiple levels between the front-end authentication points to CIDR is necessary to ensure protection against network attacks which result in denial of service (DOS). It is also important to ensure high availability and redundancy even if some parts of the network are compromised or unavailable. AUA and their partners, sub-AUAs, application providers, etc., must put appropriate network security in place to ensure their systems are protected from attack. It is hence recommended that standard network practices such as usage of encrypted channel, usage of digital certificates, IP filtering, authentication of systems and devices, network protection through firewalls, and NIPS auditing, etc., are put in place. Securing CIDR. An online service such as Aadhaar authentication will come under direct network attack from both denial of service and data theft perspective. It is extremely important that authentication service be fully protected from external unauthorized systems. CIDR must ensure multiple levels of network security through creation of DMZ application zone and data zones and protecting all the zones using multiple firewalls, network intrusion prevention systems, and strong access control and audit schemes. If authentication service is exposed over a public network such as internet to partners, it is expected to come under DOS, DDoS, distributed DOS attacks even if CIDR is internally protected. Since many application services in the country will heavily depend on Aadhaar authentication to be available, it is strategically important not to expose Aadhaar authentication over any public network, such as internet, and not to create single point of attack that can potentially affect many services. It is hence critical to expand the secure zone beyond CIDR and allow authentication services to be exposed through multiple network endpoints. Creation of ASA as a network service provider and exposing authentication services only through secure private connections using leased line is strategic to ensure multiple endpoints always exist to provide authentication services in a secure and always available fashion. The diagram shows security layers for Aadhaar authentication. So there is a bottom layer called data zone within CIDR protected using firewall and NIDP systems. Above that, there is the application zone within CIDR protecting using firewalls and NIDP systems. The above text is actually partner DMZ within CIDR accessible only through the leased lines for authorized ASA. Then we have ASA to CIDR accessed only through private secure connection through leased lines. Next, we have AUA to ASA network zone. ASAs should expose the services through secure line to AUAs. AUA, sub AUA, and other AUA partners network zone. Then we have devices and front end applications. So that means there is a multi layer protection built in within the design of the Aadhaar. In order to secure CIDR, Aadhaar has come out with the following framework. This framework envisages considering security risks related to Aadhaar authentication at various stakeholder levels. Mitigation strategies for probable vulnerabilities have been identified, and these mitigation strategies lead to the formulation of a security policy for the Aadhaar system. AUAs, sub-AUAs and devices. As UDI starts issuing Aadhaar numbers, the AUAs would need to scale. The key threats to AUAs are mentioned below along with the mitigation schemes. AUA is responsible for ensuring security of authentication data that comes through them. These include security at the device level, sub-AUA level, within AUA network, and AUA to ASA network. AUAs need to ensure sub-AUA take adequate measures when bringing them on board. In order to ensure security of data captured for authentication, there is a requirement to establish a trust mechanism between devices and sub-AUAs under AUA and between AUA and ASA. Appropriate security measures such as device registration or authentication, sub-AUA registration and authentication, operator registration and authentication in the case of assisted applications, data and transaction audits, security of network from device to AUA and then AUA to ASA, etc. need to be addressed. Standard security practices may be used to address the all above issues. For better decoupling and independent evolution of various systems, it is necessary that Aadhaar number be never be used as a domain-specific identifier. In addition, domain-specific identifiers need to be revoked and reissued, and hence usage of Aadhaar number as the identifier does not work since Aadhaar number is permanent lifetime number. For example, instead of using Aadhaar number as a bank customer ID or license number or a student ID, etc., always have a local domain-specific identifier, have the mapping in the backend database. It is recommended to deploy digitally signed applications on the devices with some AUA-specific mechanism to identify trusted devices and applications. For device authentication, digital certificate or other mechanism may be used. In the case of assisted devices and applications where operators need to mandatorily perform application functions, not a self-service application, operators should be authenticated using some authentication scheme such as password, Aadhaar authentication, smart card-based authentication, etc. PID block captured for Aadhaar authentication must be encrypted during capture and should never be sent in the clear over the network. The encrypted PID block should not be stored unless it is for buffered authentication for a short period of time, and after transmission it should be deleted. Biometric and OTP data captured for purpose of Aadhaar authentication should not be stored on any permanent storage or database. The metadata and the responses shall be stored for audit purposes for over a period of time, minimum 6 months. It is mandatory that network between AUA and ASA be secure. It is strongly recommended to have leased lines or similar secure private lines between ASA and AUA. If public network is used, a secure channel such as SSL should be used. All AUAs should follow standards such as ISO 2700 to maintain information security. AUAs and their partners who participate in conducting Aadhaar authentication should ensure compliance to prevailing laws such as IT Act. Software to prevent malware, virus attacks may be put in place and antivirus software installed to protect against viruses. Additional network security controls and endpoint authentication schemes may be put in place. It is recommended that some periodic standard certification and audit processes be established for applications, devices, and overall network across the ecosystem, and also ensure the compliance to standard security policy and procedure. It is highly recommended that AOA shall deploy as part of its system a fraud analytics module that is capable of analyzing authentication related transactions to identify fraud cases and patterns. ASA shall connect to CIDR only through a leased line. Software to prevent malware virus attacks may be put in place and antivirus software installed to protect against viruses. Additional network security controls and endpoint authentication schemes may be put in place. The metadata and the responses shall be stored for audit purposes for over a period of time, minimum 6 months. Encrypted PID block and license keys that came as part of authentication should never be stored anywhere in its system. It is mandatory that network between AUA and ASA be secure. It is strongly recommended to have a leased lines or similar secure private lines between ASA and AUA. If public network is used, a secure channel such as SSL should be used. All ASA should follow standards such as ISO 2700 to maintain information and network security. ASA and their partners who participate in conducting other authentication should ensure compliance to the prevailing laws such as IT Act. Creation of ASA as a network service provider and exposing authentication service only through secure private connections using leased line is strategic to ensure multiple endpoints always exist to provide authentication service in a secure and always available fashion. Since ASA is a network provider, it needs to address network security aspects, DOS and DDoS attacks, filter out invalid requests and invalid AUS. Network transmission is important to secure data during the transmission. Even though the data will be encrypted, it is important to secure the communication between various devices. Conclusion: UIDAI has built a very robust system for protecting privacy and secure data of residents. These security measures start from the point of enrollment where the resident submits his or her demographic and biometric data through its journey to the CIDR over the network and while it is being stored there. Security and privacy preserving measures are in place during authentication process also. Thus, the Aadhaar system is very secure from every angle and every perspective. Here are some of the references which can be consulted to know more about Aadhaar's privacy and security measures.